Again, it wasn't necessarily good, but I also stayed up until 1 a.m. reading it. Hey y'all, it's Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video, we're going to be doing my October wrap-up. Alright, so before we get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments, how did your reading month go? I really hope it went well. Did you read a lot of spooky and scary books? Let's talk about it in the comments. Unfortunately, October did not go nearly as well as I was really hoping. I actually recently had a mood reading vlog come out where I was trying my best to get out of a reading slump, and even though at the end of that vlog I really felt like I had, I still just never really picked up the momentum for my reading that I usually have at this time of year, unfortunately. So though I did get a fair amount of books read, it feels like I really did not knock my TBR down nearly as much as I was hoping to. So on that note, let's go ahead and jump into my reading stats. In October, I read 10 books, and across those, I read 3,275 pages. That does include converting audiobook hours, 2 pages. But surprisingly, this month, when it comes to audiobooks, I only listened to just over 33 hours. I really was more prioritizing eyeball reads, which is phenomenal. I'm so glad for that. But it does look like my audiobook hour number definitely went down. When it comes to the quality of the books I read this month, it was kind of middle of the road. My average rating was 3.8 stars, so not terrible, though I didn't have any DNFs, and that's solid because I feel like I had a lot in September. My genre breakdown looks exactly like I would expect for October. I read 5 horror books, and then I read 3 romance, 1 romantasy, and 1 sci-fi. For the little goals I keep for myself, unfortunately, I did not finish the nonfiction book I was reading this month. I also did not read a comic, graphic novel, or manga, and then I did actually read 2 books that were more than 450 pages, so at least I completed that last one. And then looking at my series stats, overall fairly positive. I did start into 2 new series, but I read 3 continuations, and then I read 2 books that were a part of a series. I didn't even start with the first one in the series, and I don't really have plans to ever continue this series, so I guess I'll say I decided to not finish it. Lastly, all year I have really been trying to focus on reading books off of my owned TBR, and in October I did read 5 books from that list, which is great. I would have loved to have read more from this list, especially because I knew I was going to have a bunch of new books coming in, and I was right. Not only was it my birthday month, but also the Buns N' Roses romance tea, which I'd been talking about in my shorts series. I couldn't resist myself. I bought way too many books. Just a little reminder, as per usual, I only review books in my wrap-ups, which I didn't talk about in dedicated reading vlogs. I think as for the order I'm going to go this month, we're going to go from the highest rated to the lowest rated. So starting at the top, the best book I read in October was actually my Geek Squad pick for the month. That's my book club that's hosted over on my Patreon, and we read Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. I am so glad for this because Rachel Harrison is a favorite author of mine, and she is now 3 for 3 on 5 stars. Though I did actually read this for a specific vlog that's going to be coming out in the future, so I won't be reviewing it here. If you want to see my thoughts, I do have a spoiler reading vlog over on my Patreon, which I will link in the description down below. Next up, a book that actually came at the perfect time. My friend Allie was so kind and sent me A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers for my birthday, and it arrived in time for me to pick it up so that I could try to read it for my fantasy book club, which I do in person. Then I also ended up buddy reading this with Shay at 𝗖ście. I love her so much. Link in the cards and down below. Please go give her a follow. She deserves it. So this is the second book in Becky Chambers' Wayfarer series, which is a cozy sci-fi series where you kind of follow different characters that connect throughout the series. In this one, we are following loveyoubye, who was an AI character in the first book. And without getting into too many specifics, now she actually has a body kit that she is living in and is going along with Pepper, her new friend, and basically just trying to figure out what is going to happen next for her. But at the same time, we also alternate with the perspective of Jane, this young woman who has just escaped from involuntary servitude, essentially, and is now trying to work with the AI in a spaceship to escape this planet. I really liked this one. I enjoyed the first one in this series. Like I said, cozy sci-fi. Cozies are kind of hit and miss for me. Cozy fantasies are okay, but sci-fi, apparently is doing pretty hot. However, one of my biggest issues with the first book was the cast was too wide. We just were focusing on too many characters. Whereas here, we really only alternate back and forth between these two main characters. And so because of that, the story is really slow moving. There's not a lot of plot, but you get such expansion and exploration of these two women. And I really loved the way their stories paralleled with each other. And though they were happening, I'd estimate like 20 years apart, there's so many elements of it that play together very well. And it's really interesting to see this sci-fi world Chambers has created through these different perspectives, especially in comparison to their perspectives from the first book. I love AI characters in my sci-fi stories, so I knew right out of the get-go when I found out loveyoubye was the focus for this one that I was going to enjoy it more, and I did. A lot of the time when you read a book and you have multiple perspectives, everybody usually prefers one or the other. But with this one, I actually waffled constantly as to who was my favorite, whose story did I want to return to, but it was as though I would be, desperate to read the next chapter of Lovey's, but we would move to Jane's perspective, and then I would get so engrossed all over again that by the end of her chapter, I was bummed we were leaving her and I was returning to Lovey, even though at the start I wanted to continue Lovey's story. And it was just a constant repeating pattern of that. Honestly, really the only complaint I have about this one is that I wanted a little bit more around Jane's perspective as an adult, and it's kind of hard to get into any specifics there without touching spoilers. The very end of it, I think, wrapped up a little fast. I would have liked to explore what was happening there a little bit more, taken our time with it. But overall, this was a 4.5 stars. I really, really liked it. I definitely want to read the next one in this series, but I'm a little more apprehensive than I was going from the first to the second, because though I know who the main character is in the third one, we haven't actually spent much time with them. So I'm not sure if it'll drag me in quite as quickly as this one did. I guess stay tuned to see how long it takes me to continue on with this series. The other 4.5 star I read this month was actually a book from that mood reading vlog that I mentioned, Mary by Nat Cassidy. So glad I finally got around to this one. I'm just mentioning it here because, like I said, I've been meaning to get to this book for so freaking long, and thankfully I finally did. So this one also counted for the first prompt that I completed on the 2025 Horror Bingo, a book that I've been putting off. And since it was the first book I read for that bingo, it also worked for hard mode, and I am very proud of myself. Next up is a book that actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure the vlog for this will have just been posted, but the next best book I read was The Lightning Struck Heart by TJ Klune, which I will review in a book haul revisited Raid My Shelves. And like I said, I think that should have just been posted. So again, link will be in the cards up above, but really enjoyed this one as well. TJ Klune is definitely up there for one of my favorite authors. I do think this is maybe my least favorite of his stuff so far, but even still, it just kind of has everything that I love about his stories worked in together. It was 4 stars. Oh, these two are really neck and neck with each other. So next up, I read The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. This is the novella that the Hellraiser films are based on. And so I'd always wanted to eventually try reading it because it's a novella, it's short, it's sweet, it's creepy, and Clive Barker is a name that is very popular in the cult classic horror genre. So we start out following this man, Frank, who is sort of a deviant in like every way you could think of the word. And he has spent so much time, so much energy into getting this like box thing, and is told that if you solve this mystery box, you will like call down these powerful beings who can give you whatever you want and show you untold pleasures, and that's what he wants. Then we kind of jump forward. Frank's brother and sister-in-law have just moved into the house where he was performing this ritual. I don't want to get into too many specifics. This was super weird. And I do think a big reason of why I enjoyed my time with this book so much is because it's really short. I didn't really care for any of the main characters. I think there's one person I truly rooted for in any way, but the story itself was intriguing and strange. I couldn't help it. I just had to keep reading to find out what was going to happen. Where were things going to go? The gore itself was very, very well done. The descriptive writing style Barker has is so interesting because it's not quite purple prosy. It was always these unsettling or strange, unusual metaphors or similes or just ways he would phrase things that I knew exactly what he meant. It always in a way where I would never think to describe something in the same way he did, which again just sort of added into the weird story itself, and I think really brought it to life and dragged me into the world. I'm glad I finally got around to reading it though. I ended up giving it a 4-star. I do actually want to officially try and watch the Hellraiser movies now. I'm really intrigued to see how they take some of these scenes and moments and like put them on the big screen. I'll eventually get to that, I swear. So the next 4-star novella I ended up reading was also a strange horror time, and that would be the first book in the Molly Southbourne series by Tade Thompson. This one, I don't even remember how it got on my TBR, but I saw that it was available through Kobo Plus. Decided to go ahead and read it while I was traveling. Ended up blasting through it on my trip. It's a very interesting setup where every time Molly, our main character, bleeds, a clone created out of her blood. And this has happened for as long as she can remember, since she was a child. And we start out following Molly as a kid, followed to the point where, I don't know, I'll estimate she's like in her 30s, and see how this weird affliction has affected her and her life and her relationships, how she tries her best to live something as close to normal as possible, but like, oh, it's so weird. And it's so interesting to see all of the strange things she has to learn to do this, the different ways she has to live her life because of this. It was another weird book, honestly. But I thought some of the philosophical questions that popped up off of it were really interesting. I didn't expect some of the twists that the story ended up taking. It was another one where I didn't particularly love Molly's character, but I did sympathize with her, and I was so intrigued to see where was this going to go? How was this going to end? Like, was she going to find a solution to fix this, or what was going to happen? Where this ends is so, it can kind of work as an ending for the story, but I think there's like 2 other novellas in the series. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna continue on with this because I want to see more of it. It was strange, but it was definitely really good. It held my attention very well. Another solid 4 stars. Okay, so next up is a book that I kind of picked up on a whim. And this was around the time where I was still having a difficulty getting my reading mojo back. I was just searching high and low for any book that would immediately interest me. I was really leaning into the mood reading to see if that would help me get the momentum going again. And so I stumbled upon Heteroflexible by Daryl Banner. Listen, I'm gonna be honest. I saw the synopsis of this on a Reddit post, and then I saw the title and thought, well, the synopsis is interesting. The title is terrible. Why not? I'll give it a shot. The setup is very fan fiction. We are following these 2 best friends, Jimmy and Bobby, who have known each other for years, and they went away to college together and now are returning home. And we learn that Bobby has been in love with Jimmy 15 years, but Jimmy is straight, so he's just doing his best to accept the love he gets from him. Whereas on the opposite side, Jimmy is trying to be a really good friend and be there for Bobby, but at some points he eventually just kind of toes the line of like, buddy, I don't think you're quite straight anymore. This is very much like a, guys, is it gay to kiss your buddy goodnight? Like I said, fan fiction. It was a bingeable good time, but if I think about this book for too long, I pretty immediately can point out so many issues with it. I could not look any deeper into it or I would start to dislike it. But as a very surface level read, like I said, held my attention, was entertaining. At the very least, it got me reading something. It was funny, it was dramatic, it was a little silly, a little steamy. It does have some fun twists on like gay stereotypes. Jimmy, who is the one that is the straight boy at the start, is actually a professional dancer, though I did have an issue with the fact that it's never specified what kind of dance he does. And like, as somebody who was a dancer for many years, that's a really broad spectrum. So I never knew what to be picturing. Like, is he breakdancing? Is he ballroom dancing? Is it ballet? Is it jazz? Is it military style? Like, what is it? Honestly, I didn't really love either of these characters. Bobby was whiny and an enabler. Jimmy was obnoxious, self-centered, and kind of pushed boundaries too far for me. They were both annoying, but like they were sort of perfect for each other. Again, it wasn't necessarily good, but I also stayed up until 1 a.m. reading it. So in the end, I decided to give this one 3.5 stars because it was entertaining, if nothing else. Next up, another romance book that I read this month was Best Hex Ever by Nadia el-fassi, and I actually buddy read this one with Sam at Griff Reads. So we start out following this woman, Dina, who believes herself to be hexed. So anytime she is in a relationship, the partner she is with will unfortunately experience nothing but terrible things. And so she has really isolated herself from any sort of romantic interests until one day she meets this hot guy, Scott, who comes into her bakery. They sort of have a instant attraction moment. Then she just continuously keeps running into him until she eventually finds out he is actually the best man in her best friend's wedding. And so now they are sort of forced to spend time together as the wedding goes on. It has a sprinkling of magic throughout. It's not very descriptive or ever goes in depth about how the magic itself works, but it was fun nonetheless. I did like this. I was very surprised at how spicy this got. I mean, 4 to 5 chili peppers, definitely. But unfortunately, I wasn't really very invested in the romance, which kind of made it hard to enjoy those chili peppers. It was just way too insta-love for me. And the third act conflict that you can definitely see coming from a mile away was a little frustrating, but at the same time, I will give it to the author. She did kind of have a little twist on it that I didn't see coming, and I appreciated that. However, I felt like we didn't really get to see enough of these characters and really explore each of them for that twist to feel satisfying, I guess is how I'll put it. I also just don't really tend to enjoy insta-love, so whenever these two are making like these grand proclamations after the third act conflict, I was not feeling that. You've known each other like a month, maybe. Come on, man. I did enjoy the magic elements to it. They were very fun. And then the spice itself is really well written. I will definitely give her that. In the end, I am intrigued to try out more from this author. I actually realized that the second book she just recently came out with is set in the same universe. I did like the bits of the friend group we saw, so I'm intrigued to try it. And again, like her spice is very well written, so I'm hoping if I enjoy the romance of that one more, I will get to enjoy the spice more as well. This one turned out to be a 3-star. Rounding back to Daryl Banner, after reading Heteroflexible, I honestly was just intrigued and looked at the rest of the series and saw that the second book in the series is actually following a man who is in the military and is suffering from PTSD, and then the local town's preacher's son. So honestly, I went into that one with the hope of having a good bit of angst. And like part of me applauds Banner for not falling into utilizing homophobia as a very easy way to create drama in his stories. But at the same time, that's kind of what I went into this book expecting. Instead, in this one, a lot of the drama comes from Cody's PTSD and then Trey's hangups around sexuality. Not his being gay, but like sex and intimacy in general. His sexual repression, if you will. So in the actual setup of the book, Trey is a nurse. He occasionally works as a home health care aide, and he ends up being hired to help Cody because he is refusing to partake in any of the therapy to actually recover from his PTSD, his injuries that he suffered while at war, and his mom is kind of just at the end of a rope. Well, forced proximity, having to spend time with one another, eventually sparks start to fly. Very similar to the other book, Silly Good Time. It held my attention well enough, but it didn't really go into the themes I was expecting to work into the story as much as I was hoping. Also, I just had a very difficult time with Trey as a hero. He was so naive and like over the top innocent. The main element of his story is like working through the sexual repression he has, and that's not really my thing. Also, after reading 2 of this author's books, I picked up on the fact that he has a habit of utilizing certain vocabulary that I just don't see like full-grown men using. It instead reminded me of stuff my grandma would be saying, which I think was supposed to be emphasizing this like small southern town that he was creating. It didn't really work for me, but it kind of just took me out of the story every time I read one of those. So this one was 3 stars because, like I said, I think having read 2 books of this author's back to back, I was starting to pick up on more issues I was having with it. They did what I needed them to do. They got me reading books at the very least. Lastly is one final horror book that I read this month, and I officially finished out Zombie Bake Off by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a weird little story set in Lubbock where there's an event center. At the start start of the day, it's supposed to be a bake-off, but that evening it is supposed to be a wrestling group. However, the wrestling group arrives early and starts causing issues, and then those issues are just compounded when they get into some donuts, which are spiked with a little something extra. It was a silly slasher good time, honestly. Like, this was ridiculous. It did have some very cool gory scenes, and I do just enjoy this author's writing style in general. Liked some of the characters. I was definitely rooting for some of them, but then there were other moments that were head slappers, and you wonder, like, how do you think you're gonna survive doing this? Very reminiscent a la like Zombieland or Shaun of the Dead. It was a silly fun time. I'm glad I finished it out. It was also a 3-star. Definitely not my favorite of his stuff, but entertaining nonetheless. All right, and on that note, I think that's officially it for today, y'all. So thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I guess let's leave a jack-o'-lantern emoji in the comments down below. I have links to all of my socials as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!